One of the ways in American newspapers and American media has portrayed the appointment of Mr. Medvedev as president and the likelihood that you will become prime minister is that you are in effect trying to succeed yourself, that you're term limited, and that here is a way of becoming a so-called national leader. And Americans look at that as something that they don't quite understand. I know you have recently mentioned FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, as a model, and of course Franklin Roosevelt did run for a third and fourth term, but after that the American presidency was regulated to 2 terms. A lot of Americans feel like, he's trying to get around that by assuring a leadership position for himself in the future by making the prime ministership strong and the presidency weak.
Да. И вот в конце вы сказали самое главное.
It would be possible to think this way if I, in fact, changed the Russian constitution to fit myself, my humble self. If I, for example, removed term limitations or changed constitutional authorities between the government and the president and moved to the prime minister's chair myself. I think that both are unacceptable and harmful for Russia. Russia is a country which, just like the United States, needs a balanced but strong presidential power. And I'm strongly opposed to infringement of the president's constitutional rights. I think it would be harmful. I have not personally made this decision yet, whether or not I will take the post of the head of the government. If I do, then my intention is to only execute those responsibilities in the framework of the law and constitution which are ascribed to the head of the Russian government. Monitor present-day issues, economic and social problems, health, housing, education. In other words, things that concern regular citizens the most. But key priorities of political, administrational nature, as well as appointing people, area of defense, and international relations are the president's jurisdiction. They have to stay within this institution of power. As far as the national leader, it is not an administrative or even political category. It is not defined by the number of phones on one's work desk. It's a moral category, and the foundation for it is the people's trust. This person bears a great responsibility of making decisions which might be welcomed with hooray, but might also be misunderstood or even resisted. But then this person needs to prove, to be honest with the people. He needs to speak bluntly and prove that these measures might be unpleasant, but they are necessary, which in the end will bring positive results in a long-term or mid-term run. But it is important that people believe that this would happen, which means that such a person should never lie. Everyone has the right to make mistakes, but one needs to be transparent in his actions, strive to achieve positive results. And if such a dialogue with the people is in place, then the leader will be successful.
What I'd like to do now is give you the opportunity to meddle in the affairs of American politics and ask you about the current presidential election that is underway. Is there a candidate that you prefer? Do you think, for example, that Senator Clinton's argument that Senator Obama doesn't have enough experience is valid? His counter-argument that it's not about experience, but that it's about judgment? And do you see anyone on the Republican side, some of whom have been around in American politics for a long time, Senator McCain, for example, that you would think would make a good American president? You can influence the election.
Я смотрю, вы ничего не поняли.
I can see you've understood nothing. The main principle of our work is that we consider it harmful to interfere in internal affairs of other countries. We do not let them interfere in our affairs, and will continue to not to allow this. But we do not intend to interfere in the affairs of other countries. You know, it may sound strange, but one of my European colleagues said, "You know what? I thought Moscow would support this particular candidate." I was extremely surprised. We don't do this. We don't undertake such things. We believe it to be completely improper and harmful for us. Because if we allow ourselves to do it, then even that person who we would like to see heading this or that particular state would be compromised by this. Because the population of this or that country will start to doubt what kind of interests and whose interests govern the activity of this person in a high government position. We don't have any particular preferences concerning this question, and moreover, I'm deeply convinced that whoever is elected to such a high position as President of the United States, of course, there will be subtle differences depending on personal preferences, sympathies, or antipathies, but the objective course of international affairs, the mutual interests of the United States and Russia, will inevitably push both the United States and Russian leadership into forming a good and favorable partnership with each other. Look what's happening in the world. New and powerful centers of great economic and therefore political influence are springing up and growing at a great speed. The world is changing greatly, and in the next 30 to 50 years, it will change even more. India, China, Brazil, South Africa, and other countries. Japan is getting stronger. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying it will be different. And in this connection, I'm absolutely convinced that Russia and the United States, not only now, but even more in the future, will need each other and will be forced to maintain good relations. And our future leaders, both Russian and American, who understand this, will be in great demand and will be successful.
America, as you know, is going through a presidential campaign now, and any candidate, including even the sitting president, would envy your popularity ratings here in Russia. That's one reason that I think our readers and Americans in general wonder why the campaign could not have been more open in some ways. And they wonder why, for example, Mr. Kasparov was put in jail, however briefly, and that someone as popular as you, Mr. President, wouldn't just have both the press and the opposition be as open as possible, which in the American context would probably only make you more popular.
Why do you think Mr. Kasparov was speaking English and not Russian when he was detained? Did you think about that? First of all, because all his fuss was not directed to his own people, but to the Western viewer. So a person that works for the foreign audience will never be called a political figure in his own country. Because if somebody wants to take a leadership position in his country, he must think about the interests of his own people and speak in his native language. As for the detainment, you know, everybody was granted a right, as well as it will be granted during the forthcoming presidential campaign, to express their own opinions. According to the law, all the participants of the parliamentary or presidential races have access not only to mass media. Look at some channels. The so-called opposition activists just did not leave the screens on some channels. It is true that in some others there were less of them, but within the frames prescribed by law, they were there anyway. And at some channels, they were constantly there. They also had serious, very serious financial support. They were given all opportunities to publicly express their opinion, their stand in the street and squares, but at places prescribed by the law, and the local authorities, of course. But if their purpose is not just to express their stand, but they have another task, to provoke law enforcement agencies into detaining them, and then appeal to their supporters, but not from inside of the country, but from the outside of it, showing we have this problem. In this respect, they have reached a goal. That will happen in the future as well, because we will always make sure the laws are observed.
I'm sorry, this is in the context of, why a prominent opposition figure was detained, and your original answer was because he speaks English, so I wanted to ask you, is that in fact what you meant? But secondly, some of these things that Rick just asked you about, it makes me wonder, Are you worried about the seeds of a destabilizing opposition? Is there a threat? You have very high popularity numbers, but is there a threat that you're concerned about in our Orange Revolution that could take hold there?
Look at the results of the election. 0.9%. They did not even get 1%. How can it bother us? In terms of politics, we have no worries. The matter does not lie there. The matter is quite different. It is here that I remember that people speak English. The thing is, I see it as a tool of foreign states for interfering into the domestic affairs of Russia. This is what is happening. As for the detainment, I want to repeat this once again, all people, everybody whose opinion differs from the official one on this or that question, everybody was given and will be given an opportunity to express their opinion, also publicly. The question is not here. The question is, they do not just want to express their opinion. They want to be detained. They want to provoke the authorities on some serious actions. They were told, here you can hold a rally. You can come with banners and slogans. But they don't want just this. They want to go where they are not allowed to go, where they disturb the flow of life in the multi-million city, where police are not ready to ensure security. When they consciously do such violations, the authorities react in a prescribed way. And I want to tell you with full responsibilities, the authorities will continue to react in the same way. But if people function within the law, will not break it, but they run into obstacles on fulfilling their constitutional rights, then we will punish those who do put up such obstacles. We will punish those authorities who hinder them from fulfilling their constitutional rights. Envy is a bad feeling, and it causes bad actions. You just need some sober analysis of what is going on, and a corresponding sober reaction. The reaction which would aim to strengthen relations between peoples and countries. We rely on exactly this very type of reaction in the future. I don't want to insult anybody, but let's go back in time to see that already the first election of the incumbent president was not without difficulties. Basically, the future of the presidency was decided in the court, not upon the direct vote. Here in Russia, we have direct secret vote of the head of the state. You have it through the Institute of Electoral College. And as far as I remember, behind the electors who voted for the incumbent president, there were less voters. Isn't that a system of error of the American electoral law? I want to direct your attention that somewhere at the end of the 18th century, there was another such precedent in the history of the American people. Still, we don't make you change your laws. It's a sovereign right of the American people, the lawmaker. What do you think you have a right to interfere into our matters? This is the main problem in our relations. Because in the recent years, we've been hearing, we are waiting for you. We are ready to accept you into our family, into our civilized Western family. But first, how come you decided your civilization is the best? There are some much more ancient civilizations than the American one. And second, we are told, or rather we get a hint, they make us understand, they whisper into our ear, that we are ready to accept you. But keep in mind, we have a patriarchal family, and we are the adults here, and you should listen to us. That is the continuation of the answer on the first question of your colleague. In the modern world, there is no place for such relations. Bloc-oriented mindset must die away. A totally new system of relations must come to replace it. Not just caring for the interests of the others, but working out some unified rules, which is called international law, and to strictly follow those rules. In the long run, that's the only thing that can provide stability in the world and protect interests not only of small countries, but of big ones too, even of such superpowers like the United States.